Good evening, everyone. This is Gita Wisdom with Lakshmi, and we're here already in June 3rd, second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, beginning on text 30. So, welcome everyone that's attending today. Thank you so much for your association this evening. We're going to continue our exploration of the second chapter. Very, very important chapter. Uh, I can't tell you how many times I've read the second chapter in the course of my life, and each time it is a wealth of ever deepening information, knowledge about the nature of the self, the soul. So um, it's really good that we pay close attention. I heartily encourage you, to ask any questions. Maybe keep paper and pen near you so that you can jot down the question if I say something that needs clarification, if not during the class, at the end of the class. So, what I'd like to do this evening is we're coming to the end of Arjuna explaining the distinction between matter and spirit, or the distinction between the external world, the elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Those five gross elements and three subtle elements. The gross elements are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And the subtle elements are mind, intelligence, and ego. Now, that being a subtle element is a whole class in and of itself. It's really um, a little tricky to wrap our mind around that. But let's understand that when we talk about prakriti or the material, we're talking about those elements and consciousness in relationship to those elements. And then so that's when we say material. When we say material, we're talking about the material world. Now, our world is comprised of both. We are beings that are spiritual in essence, that are covered by the material elements, and we're acting through these elements. Now, the process of self-realization is to understand that very simple point. That's the process of self-realization, to preliminarily bring us to an understanding that there is a distinction between those things. And that's why Krishna goes through great pains from the get-go, from the initial instruction that he gives Arjuna in the second chapter. He takes almost 25 verses just to explain that. So, what I want to do so that we have a clear understanding, I'm going to read quickly, just give you an overview of those verses, and then I will talk to you about some other points that I want to make. So, these are verses that are kind of like the essence of Krishna's instruction to Arjuna to help him understand that distinction between matter and spirit. Okay? So listen carefully. We've gone through this before, but you'll see the nature of these verses are so heavy and so laden with wisdom that it is good, to bring that back to the forefront so that when we continue from this point on, that is our foundation. We need a foundation. Any building needs a solid foundation. It doesn't have a solid foundation, and what will happen is in the future there will be cracks and eventually it could collapse. Same thing, I've seen people enter into spiritual life and become all enthusiastic and chanting and doing so many things, but they neglected to make sure that the foundation, the knowledge, the foundational knowledge in terms of their spiritual life was strong. And therefore, when we are tested, and tested we will be, when we are challenged, and challenged we will be in the course of our life. If you have built a strong foundation, built on knowledge, built on this wisdom, like the sacred texts of the Bhagavad Gita, we are able to endure the challenges, not only to endure the challenges, but we are able to have the steadiness of mind and being to be able to deal with the challenge as it arises and to respond to the challenge in an appropriate manner. Remember, spiritual life doesn't mean while we're embodied, doesn't mean we're not going to experience any kind of challenges. What it means is we are developing the knowledge base that will help us to properly cope with that challenge. I'll give you a very real life example of that. My wife had a car crash this evening, and
Mhm.
by God's grace, she wasn't hurt, save for the little bit of neck pain and all that. But the car was totaled, and this is a big challenge. The one lady who was the cause of the crash, she was in so much anxiety that she was rushed to the hospital, because of the anxiety. And my wife was anxious, of course, but, because she has a good, solid foundation and she knows everything is under the direct jurisdiction of the Supreme, and she was able to respond properly. And although it was an extremely challenging experience, an anxious experience, she was able to respond properly and able to cope with it. So now she's home, she's fine, and I can hear your thoughts and thank you for your compassion and kindness and well wishes. But that is,
Thank you for reading my mind, Teach.
and the reality is, the one lady who doesn't have that foundation, she's rushed to the hospital due to anxiety. The other lady, my wife, who was in and she was able to respond properly, she's home, she's with us, she's grateful that there wasn't any bodily injury of any great degree, and we are also grateful. We lost the car, um, and but we have our mother and our wife. My son, he said, "My mommy, I'm glad you're here," and as my wife, I'm also happy that's there. So this is the real time use of knowledge, this sacred wisdom spoken over 5,000 years ago. Arjuna went through, and we have to keep him in mind, because the whole reason that Arjuna is going through what he is going through in terms of his challenge, his dejection, his depression, is for us, so that we can have the strength of conviction and the depth of knowledge that when our challenges arise, we can have the proper mindset by which we can respond to these challenges, whether they're relationship, whether they're health, whether they're financial, whatever the case may be, whatever the material energy is tossing at us, then our duty, our responsibility, our hope is that we're able to respond to it properly, deal with it properly. So this is just a little aside about the value of cultivating this wisdom, and ask questions. Don't be shy. Don't feel intimidated. Oh, I'm not understanding this point. No, the more we dive deep into this wisdom, the more we're able to make sense of our life and all of the trials and tribulations of our life. So I'm going to read where we started, where Krishna um, begins his uh, knowledge, his wisdom, his sharing. Okay, so this is 11, and I'm reading this for a purpose because the next part of my lecture will include why I'm including 11. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Text 12. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Text 12. That was 12, I'm sorry. Text 13. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Text 14. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Text 15. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Text 16. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Text 17. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. And then text 18. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bhagavd. And text 19. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge. For the self slays not, nor is slain. Text 20. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Text 21. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? And text 22. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Text 23. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Text 24. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Text 25. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Text 26. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life is always born and dies forever, you still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed Arjuna. Text 27. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty,
You should not lament.
All created beings, this is 28, all created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Text 29. Some look on the soul as amazing. Some describe him as amazing. And some hear him as amazing.
While
while others,
even after
even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Text 30, this is where we'll pick up the lecture. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you should not grieve for any living being. So I'll start a little bit here. There is an understand the Bhagavad Gita and Vedic wisdom in general. You should understand to be a science. It's the science of the soul. And the more you will listen to the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, the more you hear it, then realization comes. First, there's jnana, knowledge. So Krishna has given us knowledge, and knowledge can be academic. You can spout off, you can memorize these verses, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have realized the verses. That comes when you immerse yourself in this wisdom. You put it into effect, you test it, you challenge it. We in the fourth chapter, the 34th verse, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in his commentary, says that this we are not blind followers. In other words, it is not blind faith. We are looking for the educated consumer. And what is that education? The education is coming to us in here in the Bhagavad Gita, so that we have this knowledge to bolster our strength and to give us a perspective. What does perspective means? It means vision, to give us the vision, to see things with clarity, to see things perspective. Spect means to see. So the way we see, knowledge gives us a if like for instance, I need glasses. If I don't have these glasses on, then I don't see very clearly, right? I put these glasses on, then what is just worse than an Andre Matisse impressionistic painting would be something like a Kandinsky abstract, blobs of color and hints of form. That's what my eyesight is like without glasses. I put the glasses on. Oh, there's form there. There's sense to it. So that's what perspective is. When we study Bhagavad Gita, it gives us a clarity of perspective. What is human life? How does human life distinguish itself from animal life? People are so much absorbed in eating nice food, right? Earning money, and along with money, prestige, power, fame, adoration, distinction. People are so much absorbed in all those things which are so fleeting. Eating, uh, uh, defending what you have, mating, sleeping, all of these things every species that is human or non-human does. Human life gives us the opportunity to go beyond those four primal drives of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Those are primal drives that come equipped in the body and the body's psychology. When we are attaching ourselves to the body, those primal things are naturally there. But the unique thing about the human form of life is that we can go beyond just that, just the eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and differentiate ourselves from all other species. We have reason. We have the ability to ask questions. What is the first and foremost question of human life? Who am I? That is the first question. Who am I? And what is my purpose in being here? These are indicators of human life. begin to look in that regard. So this is what distinguishes us, and this is what this knowledge will give us. It'll give us the clarity of perspective. Another way to look at it from the Yoga Sutra perspective and from the 14th and 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when you think about gunas, yoga is meant to put the mind in a predominance of influence by goodness or sattva gun, because sattva gun gives us the ability to see life with clarity and not to become bewildered by what's going on around us. Bewilderment is what Arjuna is experiencing, is it not? And why is he experiencing that bewilderment? Because he's attached. Attachment or mamatva creates possessiveness. I am this and this is mine. But if you are not that, meaning body, the temporary shell or machine that we're in, and you really don't own anything. If you come into this world and you understand, you come in naked, you leave naked, and you really understand, you become free from the possessiveness. It's not that you don't have a house or a car or a bank account. That's not what possessiveness, um, that's not the fault of possessiveness. The fault of possessiveness means it is mine, that we can possess these things with the right perspective, that it is given to me by the grace of the Supreme. And I recognize that. And by my recognition, by that recognition, um, I'm able to see it with a clearer perspective. Okay. So is that clear? That's a very, very important point. We're able to see with this perspective. We're able to see. Otherwise, we become blind. So human form of life is meant for a higher purpose. And that's what Krishna is giving Arjuna in the beginning. Understand, Arjuna, if you are attached to the temporary, what's the results of that attachment? You're going to suffer. If you're not attached to the temporary, meaning you recognize that everything is coming to you by the grace of God, and you have that gratitude, you have that appreciation, and you can, by virtue of that wisdom, you can become a person who has a house, but sees that house as an offering. How does it become an offering? We have a temple in our house. We have a room of meditation where we chant our japa, we do our kirtan. And that room is right in the center, right in the heart. And it constantly reminds us that this is not mine. This house was built in 1956, the house that I'm in. How many owners have thought that this house was theirs? And of those owners prior to us, how many of them still think that, either through death or separation due to financial or whatever the case may be? How many are still thinking that? So proper perspective means I have this body. Yes, I use this body in as an offering. We'll get into the third, fourth, and fifth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna extensively talks about the Sanskrit word is yajna. Yajna means sacrifice. And there's a verse in the third chapter where Krishna says, if you perform sacrifice, that means your actions in the knowledge or awareness of the fact that it is given to you by grace, by mercy. And thus you have a mindset that everything you receive, you're giving as an offering. If you have that mindset, Those actions become the source of your liberation. Liberation from suffering, liberation from attachment. Those very same actions, for instance, the action of eating. Can any of us get away from the action of eating? No, not unless we're yogis who exist only on sunlight and water, a mystic yogi like that. But for us, normal people, right? We know that we need to eat. So the action of eating by first offering in gratitude, that action can become liberating. And in the second part of that verse, he said, if you don't do that, if you think this is mine, I am this and this is mine, then the very same action of eating can become binding, becomes a binding force. That's what Krishna will teach us in the third, fourth, and fifth chapter. So we discussed all these nice verses giving us knowledge. And the thing, I think one of those super huge aha moments that I've had in the 53 or 4 years that I've been studying Bhagavad Gita was the aha moment as why Krishna gave Arjuna this knowledge first in order for him to be equipped to deal with his challenge. Why is Krishna going through all of this? And how do we know this is what he means? That is his intention. And as I said, the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita and other sacred texts coming from the Vedic literature is science. So there is even a science that indicates us. We can double check through this science. The science is called tatparya. And what does tatparya mean? It means intention. There's the science of indicators of what is the intention of the speaker. And there's 6 points to tatparya or intention, six indicators, which demonstrate to us why the speaker is doing what he's doing and why he's going through these different points. The 6 ones are as follows. We know, and it doesn't necessarily mean all 6 points have to be there as indicators as to why the speaker is saying what they're saying when they are saying it. But some element or another, as I'll demonstrate to you, will be there, maybe 2 or 3 of the points in a particular section. So this is the Sankhya Yoga section that we just read, and I just reiterated for you. So what was Krishna's intention? And in speaking in this way to Arjuna, why did he approach dealing with Arjuna's dejection or depression by giving him knowledge of Prakriti and Purusha, or matter and spirit? Krishna wanted him to see the distinction of both and the results of being deluded into thinking you're something that you're not. Then the suffering comes. Then the attachment comes. Then all of the problems that are there, the confusion. So the first indicator of what Krishna's intention in giving us this section can be determined by the beginning statement and the ending statement. If you remember, I read from text 11, right? What did Krishna say in text 11? Chapter 2, text 11, where I started off the reading. He says, this is the beginning of the wisdom, the Sankhya section. He says that while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament not for the living nor the dead. It's not worthy of grief. What does he say here in the 11th, I mean the 31st, the 30th. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. He starts off with being attached is causing you to grieve, but it's not worthy of grieving because it's not yours. The attachment causes possessiveness. The possessiveness causes this, it is mine and it is being taken away from me. And that is the cause of his dejection. And Krishna is saying, 11, not worthy of grief. And in 30, he's saying, therefore, you need not grieve. If you know, if you have this wisdom, you won't grieve. Why? Because you can understand the distinction between matter and spirit. You can understand that you're incapable of possessing anything. You come into the world naked, you leave the world naked. That is just an easily understandable truth that exists. So Krishna begins with that. So we can understand Krishna's intention by understanding the beginning of that section. He's talking about not worthy of grief. Don't grieve. And then you need not grieve for any living being. You can't possess them. You can't own them. They're not your property. They have their karma. They are going to go through their journey in life. They have a destiny. You cannot interfere or interrupt or change their destiny. So don't lament. The cause of your lamentation is not worthy of this. So that's one of the indicators of what Krishna's intention in speaking this way is. The second, and if you're interested in Sanskrit, I can give you the Sanskrit also. Upakrama, upakrama, beginning and end of a section of Shastra that indicates theme. So both of this beginning of this section and the end of this section is indicating Krishna's theme, Krishna's purpose in speaking this way. The second indicator of why Krishna, what is his theme, is called abhyas. And abhyas means repetition. Now you noticed how many of these verses, 11 through 30, how many times does Krishna say the soul is eternal, the soul is indestructible, the soul is insoluble, the soul can't be burned, the soul cannot be moistened by water, the soul cannot be withered by the wind or cut to pieces by weapons. Krishna repeats that again and again. Now, from a Vedic literary perspective, repetition is a weakness in the literary term. But in philosophy, when the speaker's intention is to repeat something again and again to infuse knowledge into the listener, and then that's not a weakness. That's purposefully done so that we understand. How many times must we hear something before we understand it? I think I read years ago, I was involved in the music business. And I worked for a company. It was a music production company, and our job was we would find artists and we would produce their album, their music, and then we would try to market it, get it on a record label, and get it out there and get it sold, et cetera, et cetera. But I heard somewhere many times before it took a listener numerous times of listening to a lyric before it's sunk in. It's an indicator that we have to hear something again and again and again. So Krishna uses abhyas so that he uses this repetition. Why? His intention is for us to understand the theme of this section of Bhagavad Gita, the Sankhya Yoga section. So Krishna is giving us an opening statement, just like a lawyer, right? And a lawyer in a court case will give you an opening statement and a closing statement. The opening statement introduces the theme. The closing statement solidifies the arguments that the lawyer has made. Right? Therefore, in conclusion, Your Honor, da 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 da. So Krishna's done that. He talks about grief. Grief is not worthy of experiencing, etc., etc. So, so we have the beginning and end indicator of the intention. We have abhyas, repetition, Krishna repeating again and again. Uh, the he who dwells in the body, this is 30, can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve. So it's a closing statement right there, right? It's indestructible, immutable, unchangeable, eternal, cannot be harmed by anything. Da 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 da. Krishna has gone on and on, driving that point home. And what does he say? Conversely, the material energy is temporary. It is changeable. It is mutable. It is not eternal. It is not full of knowledge, but it has the ability to cover us over and cause ignorance. Ignorance means to ignore. It causes us to ignore the obvious. That's another way to look at the term Maya. I know some of you are familiar with that term Maya. For those of you who are not, it means that which is not. Maya is that which is not. So when we say we have fallen into Maya, means that we are relating to a situation which is not. If we are thinking that our body mind complex is all that we have, and we only have it once, we only have one life to live, that is not who we are. And that is not what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. And that kind of thinking, that kind of perspective, which is covered by the gunas, tamas, and rajas, or ignorance and passion, then that kind of understanding, that kind of ignorance is going to cause us to forget things. The third is apurvata. It means embedded into everything that's being said in the proper way, at the proper time, with the proper language, by hearing it from a self-realized soul. And that's why Krishna says in the fourth chapter, Tadvidhi pradipati pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana, that we should hear this wisdom from a self-realized soul. Why is it saying that? When we hear the wisdom from a self-realized soul, that self-realized is endowed with the ability to hear the Vedic wisdom and to glean out of that something original, something fresh. And in particular, when you're teaching this wisdom, it's not something that's done mechanically. The effective way to impart this knowledge is through your own personal realizations, which come from your meditation on this wisdom and your consistently applying this wisdom in your life. That's what sadhana is. Sadhana means that which is done again and again over a long period of time. So part of our sadhana as bhakti yogis in particular, and not only bhakti yogis, kriya yogis, ashtanga yogis, etc., it's what's called swadhyaya. And swadhyaya means to hear and chant and recite the wisdom, the deep, profound wisdom. That is not just memorization, but it causes purification. And the purification gives us the ability to have realization. So memorization, purification, realization. All of these things come as a result of incorporating into your life a sadhana, means a consistent approach to the methodology of yoga, which can impart this wisdom to you and clarify your perspective, our perspective of the world around us, and why things are happening in the way they are happening. It doesn't mean we'll understand the why, all the whys and wherefores of what's happening to us, but it will give us at least the faith and the conviction of understanding that there is a purpose and why this is happening. And usually, if you have that conviction, if you have that faith, usually it is, profoundly, you realize exactly why this happened to me. What needed to be done at that time, I may not have understood it. I was incapable of knowing that this had to be done in this particular way. But due to divine intervention, then things did happen in a particular way that ultimately was for our benefit. One of the names of the Supreme is Hari, and Hari means one who takes away. Now that may sound depressing, but the other side of the coin of that meaning means one who takes away and then gives you what you need. So there's no vacuum there. There's no void there. Like if I have something, my son has my cell phone, I take it away from him. He doesn't have my cell phone, right? I take something away from him. He can lose it. But in terms of this wisdom, we see that even if something is adjusted for me in my life, I may not know why. Later on, I may be blessed with the understanding of why. So I've given you three indicators. The beginning and the end indicates the theme, why Krishna is speaking in this way. I've given you repetition, why Krishna is going over this point. Why is he driving this point home? Necessary for our realization, for our knowledge. Original and unprecedented. This was what comes through association with very advanced bhakti yogis. You get the benefit of their meditation. Can you imagine if someone is a self-realized soul and has gone through extensive meditation and introspection and had tremendous amount of realizations, and they are able to impart those realizations to you, then what a blessing that is. You get the advantage of hearing that particular philosophical point through the eyes of someone with a great deal of realization on that particular point. So that's another indicator why Krishna is doing in the way that he's doing. He's speaking. This book of Bhagavad Gita is called the Gita Upanishad. The Upanishads are difficult to understand. They're cryptic in many ways. The information is there, the knowledge is there for sure. But when Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita or the Gita Upanishad in an unprecedented way, he is taking all the wisdom of the Upanishads and making it accessible to you and to me. We may not be so qualified to understand, but due to Krishna doing it in the way that he's doing it, we can have access to it. So that's amazing. Palam, that's the fourth indicator. Palam means there's a result, there's a fruit. So Krishna is giving us all this information. And what is the fruit? What is the palam that will happen? Arjuna will eventually get it. He'll eventually have the realization. And even later on in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says as much. So by hearing and chanting and associating with wise people and doing swadhyaya, the study and introspection on these great texts, we will have this access to these realizations. And the result will be purification of our heart and an ever deepening understanding and ability to apply this wisdom in our life, which is like a soothing balm. Did you ever have that? What's it called? The Chinese balm when you have sore muscles. I forget the name of it right now. But
Tiger balm.
what is it called?
Tiger balm. Tiger.
Oh, that's it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Summer. Tiger balm. That's exactly what I was talking about. Tiger balm. You put the tiger balm on the soreness and it relieves the soreness. So this balm, this healing balm will help the soreness that comes to us from us getting bewildered by the misperception of the material energy and our involvement with it. So that's the fruit. And then what does Krishna use? We don't get it so much in this. We do get it, actually. I'll take that back. It's called Attavada. Attavada means you use eulogies, stories, arguments, narratives that support or encourage the point that Krishna is trying to make. Now, we don't get so much stories here, although we do have the overarching story of the battle of Kurukshetra. That's the overarching story. We get more of the individual stories that are help us to understand a philosophical point. We don't get that so much in Bhagavad Gita, but we do get arguments. Krishna is making an argument right now in the Sankhya Yoga. He's making an argument for why Arjuna should not experience this dejection. And we've gone over so many points, which was part of Krishna's argument. Um, it's supporting and encouraging this theme, this basic theme that Krishna is introducing to Arjuna in this Sankhya Yoga uh, 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 section of the Bhagavad Gita. You're not the body. I've listened to so many lectures given by my teacher over the course of time, not only while he was present on the planet, but even after he left in 1977. I've listened to many lectures that have been recorded. And I don't know how many times he drove home the point of that we're not the body, that we are soul, because Krishna did it in the second chapter and later on in the seventh chapter, ninth chapter, 10th chapter, 14th chapter, 18th chapter. Krishna drives home that point also. So that's like the fifth indicator of why Krishna is laying out this theme of you're not the body. And the sixth one is called Upapatti, that you'll hear a couple of different explanations given, and both of them can be understood to further elucidate the points. Like Krishna, just in recent verses that we read, Krishna says, you're eternal, therefore you should not lament. But even if you're not, you're thinking you're not eternal, the energy is eternal, right? That's what science says, that we're all just uh, morphing uh, energy that's going from manifestation to unmanifestation. Krishna makes that argument. So Krishna presents two or three sides of the coin in his arguments so that we can understand this very basic, this core principle that we need in terms of a methodology, a system, or a discipline to understand and that to understand we're not the body, but that we're soul and live on that level so that we can actually deal with life in the proper manner. Just as Arjuna needed to hear all this, so he is able to deal with his challenge in the proper manner by virtue of the wisdom that he is getting from Krishna. So I wanted to present that to you as why Krishna is making this, how Krishna is making this theme and why and how. So I'll continue on 31. Krishna says, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there is no need for hesitation. So I'm going to read a few verses and then speak on this because they're kind of intertwined. Text 32 reads, O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. Text 33. If, however, you do not perform your religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. 34. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Text 35. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. 36. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What would be more painful for you? 37. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Text 38. Just want to see the time here. Okay. Text 38. Do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin, which was one of Arjuna's arguments for not fighting. And then 39, thus far I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study or Sankhya Yoga. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results, O son of Pritha. When you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. So this section that we just read, 30 to 39, is introduction into the social system. According to the Vedas, as we said in the beginning of my lecture, I think in lecture 1, I said Veda comes from the root word vid, or knowledge. So it is a science. It is a manual that comes with the machine made of material energy. This universe comes with a manual. The manual is the Vedas, and how to operate the machine is within the Vedas. So the best way to have society work in the most harmonious way possible is by following a system that Krishna introduces, I believe, in the 4th chapter. Chaturvarnam maya shrishtas guna karma vibhagasaha. The 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas. Okay, let's get back to the point of gunas. Remember, this philosophy is intertwined, right? Especially an important philosophical point is the gunas. So the gunas talks about our psychology. As a result of our psychology, the gunas also talk about what we are naturally inclined towards. For instance, it is the responsibility to observe your child carefully. For those that you have children, it was your duty, your responsibility to observe carefully the nature of your child. And then what? Then to make sure that child is educated about life in a way which is consistent with their nature. For instance, education. You don't want to put a child into a situation that is not their nature. They're not intellectually inclined, let's say. Yet we push them, go to college, get your PhD or become a doctor, become a lawyer, become an Indian chief, whatever a parent may want to push their child towards. So if and we've seen that. We've seen families, children go away from their families because all their life they were pushed in a way that they couldn't relate to. It wasn't them, it wasn't their inclination. So the gunas have us understand, when we understand the gunas and we can see the gunas at work, then we can understand a person's natural inclinations, a person's nature. So the whole social structure of the Vedas is set up in such a way that when we recognize a person's nature and we put that person in a conducive environment to nourish that nature, then the child is happy, society is happy, and harmonious. Everything flows harmoniously. So we are introduced to one tier of that social structure here. We'll talk about it more in our next class. And that tier is what Arjuna is. He is a Kshatriya. Chat means harm, and Trayate means to protect. So the word, it's a compound word. Kshatriya or Kshatrayate means one who protects others from harm. So Krishna mentions to Arjuna several times in the course of these last verses to remind him, you are a Kshatriya through and through. And when you read the Mahabharata and when you read about Arjuna and his heroic exploits, you will see very clearly what is his nature, right? As opposed to a child that is more intellectually, not fighting, not a martial artist, but someone who's more intellectually inclined. You'll see that in the Mahabharata, and particularly, you'll see those that are inclined in that way and how they function in society. All of the various tiers of the social orders and the spiritual orders are meant to operate smoothly and in a harmonious manner so that society can go in such a way that it is harmonious. It is like a rainbow. With a rainbow, you have different colors, right? There are various colors in a rainbow. But when you see a rainbow together, flowing together, it's beautiful, isn't it? Every time I see a rainbow, it's just like, to me, I'm awestruck. Who is the artist that has produced those brilliant strokes of color, so different yet so harmonious? So it's the same thing. Society is meant to be like a rainbow. That even though we may have our uniqueness and our particular inclination, whether it's that of a Kshatriya, a warrior, or that of an educator, or that of a mercantilistic person, a business person, or that of a servant of society, all unique, all different, but yet with the stroke of the brush they all work together harmoniously. And that is the Varnashram system that Krishna is talking about in the fourth chapter. So I'll stop here and pick up from that point in our next class. Thank you so much. Today is the 3rd. So the next class will be the 10th of June. I will be on the road. I'm heading up on June 9th. I'm heading up to New York for a wonderful festival called the New York Rath Yatra. So we like to go as many times as we possibly can. It's a once a year thing. I've been to. It started in 1976, and I had a streak running all the way up, I think, until the 90s, where I went to every single one, and then I missed one because of circumstances, and then I picked up again and went to them. But anyway, uh, we're going up there, so I'll probably be giving the lecture on the road from a particular point in my travels. And I want to thank you all for, being here and contributing with your attentiveness and your willingness to hear. And I've been getting nice messages from some of you that you're appreciative of, what's been spoken about so far. Thank you for that. The very fact that you're with me is gratitude enough, able to get your association. And thank you for that. And I'll open the floor to any questions or comments or observations that you may have as a result of what has been spoken. Anyone? And remember, all questions are important.
Um,
I'm just wondering what you're going to in New York, because that's where we are.
You're in New York?
Well, New Jersey, but yeah, I'm in New York
Yeah, yeah.
I just came home from New York.
Oh, you did. Yeah, I'm going. I'll
Yeah.
be visiting. I'll be visiting New Jersey. My sister lives in Roselle Park. You
Okay.
probably
Yeah,
know where that is. So
I
I'll be
do.
visiting her for a day or two back to my place of birth, New Jersey. So
Yeah.
I'll be there. I hope I get an opportunity to meet you, Amy and Joanna. Uh,
I
I
hope so
hope I
too.
get
That would be
that.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. I know at some point, um, when the time is right, I'll probably do a program at Betsy's. Um, you
Oh,
know, uh,
okay. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've often done either lectures or kirtan at Betsy's that were always, amazing, because of
Yeah.
the kind of energy that's there at the Bhakti Barn. So
Yeah.
I'll keep you guys informed as to when and
Yeah. Let
where.
us know.
I definitely will. I definitely will.
That's great.
Does
Bhakti's just
anyone have
walking distance from my house. Yeah.
walking distance? So
Yes, from my house. Yeah.
you live in Millburn.
I do. Yes.
All right, all right. I love that downtown Millburn.
Yeah.
Been there many, many, many times over the course of years.
I'm sure.
But I'll let you
Right.
know.
Yeah, Joanna and I are excited to for what you're going to do here.
Okay, great.
Lakshmi,
Any questions? Yes, Mukti. Mukti, my dear old friend. What can I do for you? Haribo.
Prabhu, on text 11, chapter 2, yeah.
Yeah,
He's saying Krishna is saying you're mourning for what is not worthy of grief. So,
right.
so in this case, okay, no grief, but then what would Krishna be referring to outside of a situation that is so griefful, if that's a word?
In other words, so worthy of grief, right?
Yeah,
Death on a mass scale. Well, Krishna, and this is oftentimes misunderstood in that we become stones, that we don't have emotions, that we don't feel bad when someone close to us passes away. You do, you feel emotions, but you're not consumed by those emotions. You don't go into the deep, dark depression. When my mother passed away, certainly I had a very good relationship with my mother the years that, we were together. Very good relationship. But the knowledge of the fact that my mother is an eternal soul gives me great consolation. And I think I've mentioned this before. There are even cultures like in New Orleans, the Cajun culture, when they have a funeral march, it's joyous, right? Oh, when the saints come marching in. Oh, when the saints come marching in.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, I want to be in that number.
Yeah.
Oh, when the
When the
saints
saints
come
come
marching
marching
in.
in.
Yeah. There's a joy because the soul is not dead. So that's what Krishna is trying to say. You can feel your emotions. Even my wife is just finishing a life coaching course, and one of the things that they're saying, what I've heard in terms of the lectures that she's attended, that you feel and then you let it go. You embrace it and then you let it go. You don't just keep embracing until it drags you down into deep dark despair. That's what was happening with Arjuna. He was embracing, oh, they're going to die. And Krishna is saying, yes, they are, but there's nothing you can do about it. We don't have that kind of soothsayer to tell us everything. But Krishna can see, he's Sarvagya, he's all knowing. He can see that. And he can tell Arjuna, they are destined. I see their destiny. I know their destiny. There's nothing you can do. They're going to die. And you can feel sad at the death of Bhishma. Because Bhishma, although he made the wrong decision to support Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, that wasn't the right decision. Bhishma was a saintly personality. Same with Dronacharya. He didn't make the right decision, but he was a saintly, profoundly wise personality. So the thing is, we experience our emotions and then we let them, you know. That's how grief is resolved, isn't it? You embrace it, right? You're a counselor, Joanna, right? So
I
you
am.
probably can give me, further elaboration on that point. When you do grief counseling too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, my sister, as I told you, who experienced, 3 times the death of her children, she became a grief counselor and, basically targeting mothers who lost their children, prematurely at a young, my sister lost her one boy at 9, her other boy at 14, and her third child at 19. And the only one that lives is he was the second oldest, and he's 53 now. But she endured all that, and she turned it around. She thought like, okay, this is what I thought. This is how I dealt with it. She didn't drink herself into a stupor. She didn't do drugs. She didn't go wild. She became contemplative. She thought about life and all of the different aspects of life. And then she turned it around by helping others through it, you know?
At the Compassionate
So
Friends, that
what's
support
that?
called the Compassionate Friends, the support group.
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And she
amazing.
specialized in mothers who lost their children, you know.
Mhm.
And all she had to do was tell her story. And, in lieu of that degree of grief, you know, even though they were experiencing grief, that's a pretty heavy thing to endure. And she did endure it. And she's helped, a lot of people. So that's what Krishna's, we have that foundation and we can build the building, and the building will be strong.
I have a question. In terms of Vedic tradition, do they believe in destiny or that we have free will?
Both. Destiny is there as a result of our free will. The primary,
Not predetermined.
right, the primary choice is ours to either enter this material world, turn our back on God, or not. That's our choice. We're not forced into it. No, we make that choice. And the end result of that free will is that we create our destiny. We create our destiny. That's what karma means. Karma means action and reaction. We get involved in this temporary world. We act within it, and every action it follows a reaction, and those reactions, the sum total of those reactions are our destiny, which how we are going to proceed in life. So the Vedic wisdom takes says both are there for the soul. Good question. Thank you. Any other question, comment, or observation? You don't necessarily have to have a question. If you had some kind of aha moment, a realization, or observation, or even if there's something you don't accept or you want to challenge, that's fine too. We're all friends here, and we're all trying to understand this, so that we benefit. So
Um,
no holes barred here.
Lakshmi Prabhu, those terms, there were 6 terms I think you mentioned, like the beginning and end,
Yes.
uh, gives the theme, and then repetition drives the point home. And I missed number 3, and I missed exactly the Sanskrit terms you used. I'd just
Okay.
like, yeah.
What I'll do, Shamamai, is I'll copy and paste and text it to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. And yeah, I like to learn those. And the other thing was, so question was, just you were talking at the end there about nature, and Arjuna's nature as a Kshatriya, he naturally had to fight, and then the social structure is there to facilitate our nature. But like in this age, it gets, sometimes it's so mixed up, and I mean it the knowledge that we have here in the scriptures helps us to, I think the process of self-realization, that it also helps us to understand ourselves materially, our psychophysical nature. But
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a bit difficult
That that
sometimes.
that's that's a great question. Many times when I'm doing yoga teacher training, that question comes up. How do I know my dharma? How do I know my duty? And the point that you made is right on. It's 100% on. That this is a very strange age, the age of Kali Yuga, and it's not so cut and dry like that. Previous ages, it was realized. Whether not just in Vedic culture, you look at the civilized cultures of the world, the Mayan and Aztec, and the other cultures of the world, the Roman, the Greek, all of these various in Africa, all of these various different societies which have their very deep rooted cultural aspects to them. They had an organization to their
Mm,
society also. It's nature.
mm,
What we're talking about here is not imposition. What we're talking about is understanding nature. And when you do that, when you have the tools by which you can understand that nature, it's like really mind-boggling. When when I come across a person that is I can perceive is in the mode of ignorance. Now, the obvious, uh, irrefutable person or circumstance where I can tell a person is in the mode of ignorance is when they're drunk.
Mm.
You know, when they're drunk, they're acting in a way that's like doesn't make any sense. Self-destructive. That's an indicator of tamagun or the mode of ignorance. They don't know what to do, when to do it. That's another indicator of tamagun. So that's like very in your face where you can apply. So can you really talk sense into a person who's drunk? Can you really use logic to a person who's drunk? It's very, very difficult to reason with a person like that. So but the more subtle, when a person's in the mode of goodness or when the person's, because it's not that cut and dry where you're either in goodness or passion or ignorance.
Mm.
But you have a mixture. The modes they can mix. So you can have a person that's sattvic gun with a strong influence of passion. So
Mm.
goodness, tinged by passion, like a heavy passion streak, or tinged by ignorance. So it gives different flavors to who they are and how they act. But by knowing, uh, carefully studying the gunas, you can actually, look at a person. It's just like an Ayurvedic doctor. An Ayurvedic doctor knows what your doshas are. If you're Vata, then you look a particular way. You talk a particular way. But most Vatas are thin. Most Vatas can be prone to nervousness. There are certain characteristics. And a trained Ayurvedic doctor, just by looking at a person, can not only tell what their dosha is, but can also tell what is the imbalance, where their imbalance lies.
Mm.
So similarly, we study the 14th and 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where there's an extended description of the gunas, and you will be able to begin to see other people by their smile, by their behavior, by their vocabulary. All of these things will give you some indicator as how they are being
Mm.
influenced.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because if you have too much opposites, then it doesn't it doesn't really work right, does it? If you like, I remember the past time where Prabhupada saw like a bathroom in the temple and it was really dirty, and he got really upset and he was saying, devotees, you're not progressing. If you had Brahminical qualities developing, you wouldn't tolerate, you would get upset by that. And another place he talks about, like with marriage, if there's too much difference, it can't be a happy match or different things. But it's tricky. It's a tricky one, isn't it? There.
Well, that's one of the many reasons to try to understand the nature and the natural inclinations of an individual, because you can see, beyond the honeymoon moments there, the
Mm.
infatuation. And how many marriages are based on infatuation, or attracted to the way a person looks, and then you have a tendency to ignore certain little red flags that are going up, because you
Mm.
kind of become attached. You really
Mm.
like the way that person looks, and et cetera, et cetera. um yeah, so it really is helpful
Mm.
in helping you to become a little bit more objective when you look at life,
Mm.
and what's best for you. It's hard to be
Mm.
objective
Yeah, yeah,
about yourself.
yeah, because your nature, it's there, isn't it? I mean, you can't really take that away. But then, there's the thing of nurture as well that influences you. But I think the nature's stronger, that comes through. because that's
Right.
inbuilt in you. And I've been thinking about this on and off at like Karna, he was a Kshatriya, but he was raised by a Sudra, wasn't it? Carpenter. And then he had to suffer because of that. And so it's like that sometimes in Kali Yuga, that the nurturing isn't good. But but we have to figure it out somehow ourselves. I mean, Krishna consciousness is all encompassing, isn't it? So we can learn these things and make adjustments.
It's real. I really like Ayurveda because it's all about balance. Ayurveda is all health is about balance. When we're imbalanced, then we're susceptible to all kinds of diseases. When we're balanced, then we give the body its ability, we empower the body to heal itself when we're able to, be into balance. So Ayurveda is all about bringing the individual unique body that you possess into balance so that it's strong and able to deal with what we have to deal with. So I have to go now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with me. You guys are
Thank
wonderful.
you.
You're welcome. And we'll see you next week. Same time, same station.
I'm glad your
Thank you
voice
so much.
is okay.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That was the first thing both of us thought about. She thought how grateful she was that the airbags were discharged, the whole nine, and she was grateful that there was minimal damage. And so, yeah, thank you all for your well wishes, and we'll
Thank
speak to
you.
you. See you soon. Take care.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Okay, maybe let I finished.